Well, it is Michael Chiesa fighting this Saturday, UFC 310, December 7th. Mike, for you, I mean, second fight in 4 months. You haven't gotten to do this in a long time, man. So talk to me about how you're feeling just getting to have this consistency in your schedule.
Man, it feels good. Consistency is key for me. I've always had a lot of success when I've been able to rattle off fights in a consistent time frame. And it's just been good, man. That's what I wanted. I told my wife after the Tony Ferguson, or before the Tony Ferguson fight, like, hey, this is a tough fight. I don't know what direction I'm going to go with my career competitively. And then got the job done super quick, totally healthy. No, I had more injuries going into that fight than I did coming out of it. So this is coming into this fight fully healthy, no injuries, no bumps, bruises, nothing tweaked. So it just made sense. Like, let's roll into December. I wanted to fight on the Tampa card, but here I am on the brink of my 37th birthday, fighting on December 7th. So everything's perfect. Great opponent, great opportunity, and I'm just excited to be getting some consistency going again.
I love it, man. You talked about that Tony Ferguson fight. The emotions there were pretty evident, man. Kind of looking back on that, can you talk about what that meant? Because it did feel kind of like your career was kind of hanging in the balance.
Yeah, it really was hanging in the balance, but I didn't put any added pressure on myself. I was very comfortable with the fact of like, hey, I told my wife headed into the fight that I was like, if I really got to go battle this guy for 15 minutes, it's probably my last one, and for me to go out there, and I told her, like, if I can get the job done quick, if I make it look easy, like, that's really going to tell the story of what direction we're going to take my career and how much more I'm going to compete. And the first thing she said to me after I won was, you're probably going to fight for a lot longer. I said, for the foreseeable future, absolutely. But I work with my uncle a lot, who's a sports psychologist, and he really helped me to not put any added pressure on myself. Don't even think about the R word. Focus on being present in the moment. Focus on your fight. And just remember that, like, at the end of the day, dude, like, the people that matter, they're going to love you regardless. They don't care if you're a winner or a loser. You can win 100 fights. You could lose 100 fights. The people that matter, they're going to love you the same regardless. And I think that lifted a weight off my shoulder because I'm always trying to meet the expectations of people that really don't matter. The people that love me, they don't have those types of expectations. So once I really lifted that weight off my shoulders, focus on being present in the moment, just focus on the fight, it just helped me not add any type of added pressure to myself headed into that Tony Ferguson fight. And I feel liberated from the mental constraints I've put on myself over the course of my career, especially when you look back on that 3-fight skid I was on. Like, it was really a mental battle for me. It wasn't a physical thing. I was out there beating myself. I was losing these fights before they even started, and it all started up here. So I've really got my mind right. My body's good. I haven't had any major surgeries, not many major injuries, haven't taken too many headshots. So there's no reason after that Tony Ferguson fight why I shouldn't compete for the foreseeable future and why I shouldn't go out there, try to make another run at getting in contention.
That's awesome. So regardless of like where you felt like you were at in your career, I mean, you have something else, right? I mean, you have this incredible analyst career, commentary career as well, so it's not like you don't have options. So did you even consider that? Like, man, I love doing this. I don't have to get punched in the face when I do this. I know the paychecks aren't quite as nice, but it's a hell of a lot easier, right?
Yeah, I just know it's there, but it's not like it's not something where it's like, well, if this doesn't go my way, I know I have something to fall back on. Like, no, I like doing all of it at the same time. And I'm sure Anthony Smith feels that way. I'm sure DC felt that way when he was competing. Same with Bisping and Dominic and all these guys. It's fun to play both roles. It's so fun to be a competitor and then turn around the next week or two and be back, suit and tie at the desk or calling fights for LFA or BFL or whatever. Like, I love being able to do everything, but I will admit that it is nice having that cushion, knowing that what direction I'm going to go when I'm done competing. And more important than anything, John, is I get to maintain my identity as a fighter with my next chapter when I'm done as a competitor. I'm still going to be me. I still going to be Michael Chiesa, UFC fighter, sitting behind the desk, talking fights. Like, I get to progress. I get to continue to progress my fighting career in a different way. And I feel very blessed, man. This is what I've always wanted. I want my life to revolve around this sport, and that's what I've aspired to do. And I've really made this all come to fruition. So it's so much fun knowing that I do have that on the back burner when I want it, but I like cooking 2 pots at the same time. So it's a lot of fun being able to do being able to do everything mixed martial arts. I coach young guys back home, working as an analyst, gunning to get my spot as a commentator. But I'm still a competitor first and foremost.
I love it. Well, the pot in front of you right now, Max Griffin. Talk to me about him. Tough guy, right? Has had some inconsistent results sometimes, but always a game effort for sure, man. So what do you think about him as an opponent?
Dude, he's super tough. I anticipate a 15-minute fight. I think Max is extremely durable. He's really tough. He's very, very game. Fought a lot of high-caliber guys, and while he's had some inconsistencies, well, I kind of have too. So it's like, do I even put that into consideration when I apply myself to this matchup? Absolutely not, because I've been in his position with some inconsistencies, but nonetheless, he's a very tough fighter. He's very game. He's well trained. He's shown an ability to mix up his game plan. We've seen him in the Zaleem fight come in with like a wrestling heavy approach. More often than not, we see him opt to stand and strike and look to find a home for that right hand. So I think that he's got a very underrated ability to adjust his game plan. He can fight two types of styles, but I do think he's going to stick with his bread and butter. I think he's going to look to sprawl and brawl, keep me on my feet. But I think that he's going to be in for a lot of surprises. If I'm not able to take him down, I think he's going to be very frustrated with what I can do on the feet. And there's a lot of things I haven't shown yet. And if he's the guy that's going to bring it out of me, I'm excited to show the world that I'm more than a one-trick pony. I can do more than grapple. I'm a very well-rounded fighter. I get so much banter from the guys in the gym, like, when are you just going to stand and strike with these guys? Because they see what I do in the gym, and I'm like, hey, the plan A is working. If it ain't broke, don't fix it, So, yeah, we'll see what happens with this fight, but I'm really excited. I think Max is a total stud. We've trained together in the past. I think the world of him and Fluffy and his team. I think they're all great guys. We've always gotten along in passing, but sometimes you got to get out there and fight your friends, and at the end of the day, it's just a business.
I love it, man. Talk about your training approach. I mean, you got a lot to balance these days, right? Like you said, you're coaching, you're commentating, you're doing all this stuff. So what is the approach now? I saw you say you're kind of taking more of an athletic approach more than a tactical approach, I guess.
A little bit of both. Obviously, I'm still with my head coach, Rick Little. He knows my body. He knows my style. I can walk in the gym and he can just look at me and say, like, well, we're going to reel you back today, or we're going to push you a little harder. So having somebody at the range that can just take one look at me and know what direction we're going to take our training that day really makes a big difference. And I think that, it's good to go to these super camps for some guys, but you're one of many. Back home, I'm one of few, so I get a lot of attention, and we've had a lot of success working together. So it's great having a coach that can read your body to adjust your training accordingly. And as you get older, you do have to be mindful of just listening to your body a little more. So obviously, you're always going to be sore. You're going to have, it's just the rigors of training camp. You're always going to feel. And you got to push through them. But as you get older, you do have to listen to your body. And I've done a better job of listening to my body while still pushing the limit of getting myself in very, very good shape, coming up with good game plans. So it's a little blend of both. I was able to actually get a lot more sparring in this camp compared to the Tony fight. The Tony fight, I came in there with a torn UCL in my thumb, tore ligament in my left elbow, and it was the young guns, the kids that I help out, Ashton and Brady. Ashton tore my ligament in my thumb. Brady tore the tendon in my elbow. So these young guys I'm helping coach, they're freaking beating me up. And, so it's being able to get more sparring in for this fight was key, because we know how much Max likes to stay on the feet. We know what weapons he brings, and it's best I get as many live looks as I can headed into this fight. So it felt good to be able to get some frequent sparring. And so while I have said in the past, I take a more athletic approach, focusing on the strength conditioning, I've still been able to do that, but being able to mix in a lot more sparring has been very key for this fight. So kind of getting back to my old ways a little more of just getting a lot more rounds in. I
love it, man. I was looking on Instagram. Were you snowboarding a week ago?
I was snowboarding on Saturday.
I mean, is that advisable ahead of a mixed martial arts contest at the highest level of the sport?
Listen, John, let me tell you something. I am less in harm's way riding in soft snow than I am going in the gym and training with these young guys. Like I said, tearing these ligaments in my hands and elbows and getting punched in the face. Everyone's like, why are you going snowboarding before your fight? And I'm like, I'm a lot safer falling down in soft snow than I am getting punched in the face by these guys. And it's good, man. For me, it's like, it's just it's the place that I can go and just kind of like let my mind just take a break from everything. Not that I really need it, but it feels good to just go snowboard, just have a day where I'm not in training camp. I don't feel like I'm in training camp on the mountain. I'm just able to, obviously, it's a workout. So for one, it's active rest. But for two, it's like I could take a break from training camp and just snowboard, have fun. And then when I leave the mountain, I can get right back to work. So it's good for me and my mentality, and it's good for my legs. Snowboarding's good for the quads.
I love it. A couple outside your fight, I wanted to ask you. I know you put #VisionQuest on a lot of things on your posts. What do you think about NCAA wrestling being on UFC FIGHT PASS, man? A new addition to FIGHT PASS there with Match Day.
Dude, I love it. Nate Engel from Oregon State reached out to me because somebody fell off in the commentary spot and asked me to come on, and unfortunately I couldn't do it. But I love seeing wrestling continue to grow. It's so crazy to think that it wasn't that long ago that we were all wearing shirts saying Save Olympic Wrestling. And to see now that it's growing, and I think a lot of that has to do polarizing figures like Jordan Burroughs and Bo Nickel and these polarizing guys in the sport of wrestling, they're kind of putting it on their backs and bringing it back into the limelight and getting it the spotlight that it deserves. So it's super cool to see that Fight Pass is now adopting NCAA wrestling and getting on a streaming platform. And I'm just chomping at the bit to get on the sticks and call some wrestling matches, man. That'd be super fun. But really excited about it, man. I come from in Spokane. We're a very wrestling heavy city. A lot of good wrestlers. That's where Vision Quest was filmed. So it's pretty badass to see that the showcase that wrestling is getting. It deserves it, man. It's the greatest sport in the entire world.
Love that, man. All right, Shavkat, Ian, Garry, big fight in your division. I know you, as a fan, because I know you're a fan of the sport. I know you're hyped up about this one, man. It feels like a coin toss to me. Are you leaning one way or the other? What are you expecting to see in this fight?
I am leaning one way, but it's not like it's a hard lean. I will say this. The one thing that I'm leaning towards the hardest is this fight's going to go the distance. This will be the first time that Shavkat has to go from bell to bell and not get the finish. But when the dust settles from this fight, I do think it's going to be Shavkat that gets his hand raised. I just think that Ian Garry's elusiveness is going to be the biggest problem for him. If Ian can keep him at distance with his kicks and use stance changes to make it to where it's hard for Shavkat to get a read on him, that's going to be his best opportunity to win this fight, because Shavkat does so good when he can close the distance, land the knees that we saw against Jeff Neal. Great kicker himself. We saw a lot of great kicks against Jeff Neal in that fight as well. But Jeff Neal's not Ian Garry. You know, Jeff Neal likes to have his feet in the ground, land big power shots. Ian's a lot more elusive, so I think Ian's going to have to be on his bike a lot. But I think Shavkat, after a round or two, is going to find a way to start to solve the puzzle of Ian Garry. I could see Ian winning a round or two, but I think at the end it's going to be Shavkat getting his hand raised. But nonetheless, it's an incredible fight. I mean, when do we ever get to see two young, undefeated prospects fight for not a world title? Like, we get to see these guys in the prime of their careers with the O's next to their name. Like, this is going to be an incredible fight. We don't get to see this very often. I don't think there's a better fight they could have put together. I know we wanted Shavkat and Bilal. That would have been phenomenal. But when you look at the other fights that were offered, Pratis, Covington, Usman, this is the best of all of them outside of him getting to fight Bilal. So I love this fight. I love the implications. I love that it's high stakes. And the fact that Ian Garry was game to jump in there on short notice and fight a guy like Shavkat Rakhmonov shows he's a total stud.
I love it, man. Last thing for me. Man, close out the year with a win, celebrate a birthday. It sounds like you're in for the long haul now. The wife's along with it. So what does 2025 hold for you?
2025, more frequency, man. I'm looking to fight a handful of times. I said I wasn't going to talk about it until after the fight, but I know UFC Seattle is around the corner. Pretty fast turnaround, and I got a pretty damn tough opponent, so I can't count my chickens before they hatch. But if things go my way and I can walk out of there relatively unscathed, I wouldn't be surprised if I fight in Seattle. But we'll see what happens. I'm focused on December 7th. I'm focused on Max Griffin. But I can tell you confidently that in 2025 you'll be seeing me compete. In 2025 you will see me competing a lot more.